Welcome and welcome back, everybody, to the OK Grognard Show. It is Thursday, April 15th, 2021, 10 a.m. Central in beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And we are going to talk today, and possibly next week too, depending on how indulgent I become, I guess. We're going to talk about money and expenses. The first edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons way. I got DMG on the title page there. Title page, title card, whatever you want to call that. But some of this info obviously has to come from the player's handbook. So I took a few snaps, a couple of screen grabs from that. And we'll check that out. In fact, we'll check it out right now. Because we might as well dive right into this. There's where it all starts, right? You're creating a character. You need to know how much money they have before you can start buying equipment. And the thing for you to do then is to roll. It depends, of course, on your character class. I'm going to pop open a bigger version of this so that my old eyes can see it well enough. Pop that over here. There we go. So it says starting money. Your character is unusual, exceptional as compared to the norm. This applies to abilities and funds as well. Thus, he or she will have a large supply of coins with which to purchase equipment and supplies to begin adventuring. The possible number of gold pieces with which a player begins depends upon the character class. And monk being the only aside here, these subclasses fall under the character class. Cleric, 30 to 180, so you just keep those 3d6 rolling, right? Hey, by the way, before we get too far into it, classic Lake Geneva Games shirt being worn. Don't forget they open today at 3 p.m. if you're in the area or don't mind making a little sojourn to the store. Please do stop by, show your support. It's been closed for 13 months. If you can't make it till the weekend, that's perfectly understandable. Don't forget there's a pre-release starting tomorrow. So pre-release kits for the new set. Strixhaven? Yeah. Will be available tomorrow. I guess you could go by and place a pre-order to make sure that you're able to get yours. Right? Pre-order your pre-release kits. There's no pre-release event per se, but stop in around the usual time. There'll be some open play space for those who want to do that tomorrow night. So if you wanted to dive in, play with someone else, if you wanted to, say if somebody got a piece of paper and a pencil and just made up bracket. Official events are not sanctioned by Wizards of the Coast. They don't want stores to be running official sanctioned events. But you know, pre-release kits come with their own promo inside. So, you know, good morning, Misty. How you doing? So you can, just sit down and play a game out of the kit. Build your own deck, and the lands will be there for people to use. So don't worry about that. All the usual supplies. When you stop by, you'll get to see some fairly significant changes in the retail space. There's still some efforts being made to upgrade the play spaces as well, but due to the fact that they can only be partially used while this pandemic winds down, the focus has gone into the front room and get that up to snuff, make some improvements before reopening. You'll like that. The bathroom's been retiled and painted. That'll be a significant plus for a lot of people. So, Yeah, lots of upgrades. Go check them out. Say hi to Jason. Thank him for reopening after 13 months of just paying bills to keep the place alive. It's a huge effort on his part, a huge expense on his part, but he did not want Lake Geneva to be without a game store going forward. So toughed it out. And now he's reopening, and it's time. He'll bring me back on the team later this summer. Needs to work it himself for a little bit to kind of beat down the debt. So the more you can pick up from the store instead of from elsewhere, the sooner the debt is expunged, and that's good for the store's health and longevity as well. So thank you for anything you can do by stopping in the game store. Let's get back to speaking of money, starting money. We've got these different amounts, random amounts. To determine the number of gold pieces your character has at the start, simply roll the appropriate dice and total the sum, adding a decimal place if necessary. Most of these funds will quickly be spent in the cost of staying in the adventuring area and acquiring the equipment which will be used for adventuring. There's a whole chart on basing equipment. We're not going that far with this discussion. We've got plenty to talk about just on the money and expenses themselves without getting into equipment and equipment costs. But let's say this. There are obviously many ways you can adjust these to make campaigns easier for starting characters, tougher for starting characters, more streamlined, more universal. Obviously, there's a big difference between 30 and 180 starting gold for a cleric, and certainly a monk having only 20. Now their needs are few. They don't buy a lot of equipment. But look at the magic user with only 80 gold to start with as a max. 120 for a thief. Well, they don't have the big metal armor expenses, which is largely what gets addressed with that difference. So what do? I have run campaigns where I said everybody start with max starting gold. And if you want, if you come up a little short, talk to someone else. They probably haven't spent all of theirs. Don't be stingy, pass it around. Everyone has max. I've started campaigns where everybody had the minimum amount of starting gold pieces. Tough campaigns, make it difficult. Let people eke out. I've had that where I've done minimum starting gold, but then kind of used that first game session as a way to help the characters basically get the supplies they need, equipment they need. So we might role play a fighter who is gets his starting gold and just trying to figure out how to get all his equipment together, but then go to his family's farm or his uncle's farm and discovers his uncle used to be an adventurer, and his uncle pulls out an old chest and opens it up, and his old armor is in there. It's not the greatest, but being proud, he's kept it clean, kept it conditioned, and by golly, with a few adjustments, it fits just fine. So there's a chunk of money that didn't need to be spent. Plus, we're laying down the groundwork for cementing these characters into the setting by putting up an uncle. Now, of course, most players who've played for a while will tell you that they want their character to be an orphan. They don't want to be. They don't want relatives to be held hostage or forced into playing in a particular adventure based on that. So be careful with that. Don't merely introduce relatives only to have them slaughtered in the second game session. Let's move on a little bit. There's a couple more sections that are actually in the player's handbook, including this, an explanation of the monetary system. The basic unit of exchange is the gold piece, GP hereafter. There are coins of lesser and greater value, and these are shown on the table below. It is also common to use gems of various sorts and value as coins. And what Gary suggested was 10 coppers equal 1 silver, 20 silver pieces equals 1 gold, 2 electrum pieces equals a 1 gold, 1 platinum piece equals 5 gold. Thus, 200 copper pieces equals 20 silver pieces equals 2 electrum pieces equals 1 gold piece equals 1/5 of a platinum piece. Well, I'll tell you what. When you're trying to get things done as quickly as possible in a game and people are gathering up coins from a treasure and they're trying to do the math in their head, this isn't that tough, but it's not the easiest it could be. This could be simpler. When I run games, my campaign setting, I just decimal everything. So I don't use Electrum at all. Pain in the butt. I don't care for it. I have it at 10 copper equals a silver, 10 silver equals a gold, 10 gold equals a platinum. It converts just using decimals, nice and easy. And I make no never mind further. Where I like to distinguish things is when people will go adventuring and find some hoard from ancient times. I will describe the coins as being ancient, and often, for the curious, will either just describe or even have a picture of what the coin obverse and reverse sides look like, because I think it's fun to denote when that is the case. And then, of course, players, before they can spend these unusual coins at most businesses in town, will have to go to a money changer and, for a small percentage, change it to the coin of the realm. In larger places, that's true. There may be smaller towns or villages where people don't care. This is obviously gold. Gold is fine. It doesn't have to be the exact same size as the gold pieces I'm used to. I know gold when I see it. I'm happy to get it. I'm not going to argue about whose face is on it. There are other places that are closer to the capital in a location or in a well-run kingdom where it's against the law to spend anything but the coin of the realm. They want to know where that money's coming from. If there's a huge influx of gold or silver, even copper, platinum, of course, from outside of the economic system here, they want to know about it because they're well aware of the inflationary effects of huge coin dumps on the kingdom. So there's some regulation to it, and part of how they make sure that prices don't spiral out of control is by regulating what coins can be spent, what's acceptable. They know when they go and the tax collector comes around to businesses, what coins they're paying in. Certainly a jeweler or somebody who can melt down coins can turn a pile of gold coins into a gold artifact of some sort, a water pitcher, a bowl, decorative bowl, and that can have value beyond the number of coins that are used to put into it. But most people don't have the ability to do that. There'll be some people that can just melt them down and make ingots out of them. But if they're not stamped with the kingdom's mark, they may not be easily used in that kingdom. And of course, there are underground ways of moving stuff around through various channels. Let's continue. It is assumed that the size and weight of each coin is relatively equal to each other coin, regardless of type. Your character will most probably be adventuring, and remember, this is the player's handbook. Your character will most probably be adventuring in an area where money is plentiful. Think of the situation as similar to Alaskan boom towns during the gold rush days, when eggs sold for $1 each and mining tools sold for 20, 50, and $100 or more. Costs in the adventuring area are distorted because of the law of supply and demand. The supply of coin is high, while supplies of equipment for adventurers in great demand. And that is true for most settings or campaigns. But if you run a campaign for any length of time, pretty soon you're going to have to assume some normalization of economics, and then you're going to have to deal with that. We'll talk about that later, though. Money changing, banks, loans, and jewelers. Large sums of lower value coins can be changed to a smaller number of larger value coins and vice versa at a relatively small cost, typically 3% of the transaction. This is done at the money changers. The money changer will also score as a banker, keeping funds and giving a marker to vouch for the amount. Note that bankers will not usually give any interest. Bankers will give loans according to the reliability, renown, status, and material possessions of the individual. An unknown and low-level character is unlikely to get a loan without giving security for the value of the amount borrowed. Furthermore, the interest rate will be high, typically 10% per month or even 5% per week. A well-known and pro, pro, properted? I don't know this word at all. I wonder if it's meant to be purported. Let's see. Propertied. Oh, of course. I'm putting the accent on the wrong syllable. Easily, it's propertied. A well-known and propertied character can typically get large amounts, large loans at relatively low interest, 1% per week or thereabouts. Jewelers and gem merchants will buy and sell jewelry and gems. The buying price will usually be 20% under the actual value of the piece or stone. Characters should carefully shop around whenever possible to determine which establishment offers them the best value. So there you go. That is all that the Player's Handbook has on the subject of money. And it's just before the equipment section, which we won't get into in this talk. But that's something we should reserve for a future date because equipment is a pretty extensive portion, not just of the Player's Handbook, but of the DMG and of First Edition Advanced Dungeons and Dragons as a whole. But you know what? Let's move over. I think it's page 36 in the Dungeon Master's Guide, where they start a discussion on money. Player character starting money. And this is why we needed to look at that stuff in the Player's Handbook first. The amount of funds which each player begins with is kept low to prevent the game from becoming too easy. Players learn from the beginning that they are never able to obtain all the goods they would like in order to feel safe and satisfied. Explain to the players that the sums they begin with, Player's Handbook money, represent inherited monies and savings A Magic user, for example, has had to expend most ready cash he or she possessed on training. Monks are ascetics who don't care about material possessions in any event, so they do not accumulate much. Zipping up to the next column, money prior to becoming adventurers and treasure seekers. If you have a difficult campaign and you opt to bestow a limited number of special items to player characters at the beginning of the game, a potion, a magic goodie such as a +1 dagger, or even something as mundane as a family suit of plate mail, you should adjust the starting money accordingly. The game is always supposed to be a challenge to cause players to want for something, to wish to adventure with their characters in order to obtain the desired things. Remembering that good players will be able to gain from nearly any successful encounter, there will always be some armor and weapons or equipment to be gained from an adventure. You should not hesitate to be stingy and tight right from the beginning of the campaign. And I agree with this wholeheartedly. I really think most campaigns should begin with that starting money, and if people roll low, damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Let them go find some money on an adventure and give them lots of opportunities to do so. That's where you don't get stingy. The more you can create ahead of the campaign, the more you have. Even if you don't use it right away, it can be used on subsequent campaigns. So create a number of opportunities. Let them decide where to go. I'm a sandbox DM myself. I like to have multiple locations and let the players decide what excites them to go explore. And I try to dispense with the hand holding at that point. And just describe things. I'm the consequences guy. You tell me your actions, I let you know what happens. You want to go to this location? Here's what you see. Now what do you want to do? Keep asking for new actions. Keep giving them more detail in the consequences. Let's continue. Player character expenses. Each player character will automatically expend not less than 100 gold pieces per level of experience per month. This is simply support, upkeep, equipment, and entertainment expense. These costs are to be deducted by the Dungeon Master automatically, and any further spending by the PCs is to be added to these costs. Such expense is justified by the fact, he puts that in quotes, that adventurers are a freewheeling and high-living lot, except, of course, for monks. Other miscellaneous expenditures by player characters encompass such things as additional equipment expense for henchmen or hirelings, cost of hirelings, bribes, cost of locating prospective henchmen, and so on. To such costs are to be added maintenance of henchmen, 100 gold pieces per level per month. There's an asterisk there. This is in addition to all treasures shared. Maintenance of stronghold, 1% of total cost of stronghold per month. That's just upkeep and maintenance. Finally, any taxation or other levies must be taken into consideration along with contributions to the player character's religious organization. All of these costs will help assure the PCs have a keen interest in going out and adventuring in order to support themselves and their many associates and holdings. You may reduce costs according to prevailing circumstances if you feel it is warranted, but even so doing should not give rise to excess funds on hand in the campaign. Gary was of a mind that there's nothing more dangerous than a player character that has more money than it knows what to do with. So tax, 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 tariffs and fees. The man should try to be keeping them down, as it were. Value and reputed properties of gems and jewelry. We'll get a little bit into this. The base value of gems found in treasure can be determined in whole or by lots of 5 or 10 stones by rolling percentile dice. This is to say, if you're going to throw a lot of gems into a treasure, do them in lots of 5s and 10s. Don't do them each individually because you will be rolling all day long. These are the base values. Don't forget that. 10 gold pieces, 50 gold pieces, 100 gold, 500, 1,000, 5,000 on a roll of 100 natural. The sizes vary, of course, commensurate with the value, base value, and of course, a description. There's more to that later. Value of a gem depends upon its type, quality, and weight. A huge semi-precious stone, carnelian, for example, is worth as much as an average gemstone, quality being equal. Size may vary from stone to stone, a 50 gold piece ornamental stone being of above average size, while a 50 gold piece gemstone would be most likely to be very small. We'll get into the increase or decrease of worth beyond base value. You can see they go up and down a little bit. Stone increases the next higher level. Stone is 10 to 40% below base value. This is stuff you should be dealing with away from the table. This is stuff you can get into the weeds on this quite easily, so don't do it while all your players are sitting around waiting for you. Key to gem properties: transparent, translucent, opaque. You've got a bunch of different ornamental stones. Semi-precious stones are mentioned. Fancy stones. We get into those that are very high value, are very special. And then there's a little discussion on jewelry. Now, this is something we could spend more time on. Reputed magical properties of gems. So, particular gems are often tied to particular kinds of magic. That might be worth going into someday. It includes all of these different kinds of stones. Colors are usually tied to an aspect. Note regarding the magical properties of gems, herbs, et al. Regardless of what quality gems, herbs, and other substances are purported to possess, the mere possession of a score of a type of gem or a bale of some herb will convey absolutely no benefit of magical nature to the character concerned. These special qualities are given herein merely to special qualities are given herein merely as information for the dungeon master use in devising special formulae for potions, inks, etc. The information might also prove useful in other ways, particularly with regard to description of magic items, laboratories, and so on. Under no circumstances should you allow some player to convince you to the contrary. So, just because someone has a topaz, it doesn't mean all topazes ward off evil spirits. For example, but if you have a sword that gives protection from evil, perhaps you put a couple of topaz in the hilt or in the pommel. Value of other rare commodities. So we're getting a little beyond the scope of what this game was, or what this particular thing, and then it gets into armor classes, and weapons. So there you go. I think we've covered the money section and the DMG quite well, and this is good timing because we're just about done for the day. So there you are. I will also say, and let me say this right out loud, thanks to everybody for being in the chat, hanging out, checking things out. Thanks to everybody who checks us out on Twitch, and please do follow the channel if you are doing so. Understand we put these up on YouTube usually within the hour after the show. which we do on Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. Central, live streamed here on Twitch. If you're catching up with it on YouTube, though, please do subscribe to the channel and make sure to click the little bell so you'll get notifications of when new episodes are uploaded. Subscribe to the channel, but give us a thumbs up on videos that you like and or enjoy, and by all means, share them with your friends. Feel free to comment on them. If you have something you want to throw down, there you go. Thank you, Sarah. Hey, Prometheus, you're in here too. Appreciate you stopping by. And I appreciate everybody who checks out this show. This has been the OK Grognard Show from beautiful Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Bye-bye.